Hi, this is Grover with Blue Collar Codes, quick and dirty. Going to go over a LeetCode problem 482 license key formatting. If you wish to follow along at all, link in the video summary. So you're given a string input that's alphanumeric and has dashes in it. And then you're given a integer k value that just designates how the output string, how many strings need to be grouped and separated by these hyphens. The one thing of note here is just if the amount of characters is not divisible by k, or it does not return a whole number and there's a remainder, then the first group can deviate and can be in alternate amounts so that the rest of the groupings are the correct amount. So to jump over to how I solved it, not really efficiently. Again, 9 submissions, so I was being kind of lazy in my, trying to think of all of the nuances of my nested looping structure. So it won't be the most efficient answer, but it will be a answer and something that you can pit against your own. And then we'll go over the most upvoted Python solution. And so initially I just checked to see if the string is of length 1, so that it just returns the uppercase, but also checks to see if that's a hyphen, so it would just return none. And then making the cursor 0 to start at the beginning of the string, finding out how many characters the first group needs by just doing the length of the overall string, subtracting the amount of hyphens, and then modulus the k. Making an empty string res, and then a counter to help me keep track of the groupings. So the outer while loop is just maintaining that x does not go past the upper bounds or the last index position of the string. And then this nested while loop here is seeing if the length of the result is the length of the first group, and if it is not, or it is equal to, then it'll run through it, and it basically just groups the first group, checking if they're a hyphen, then skipping over it. If the length equals the first group, it adds a hyphen and then breaks out of it, and then it just adds characters and increments x if none of these other conditions are met. Basic, straightforward. And then once it creates the first group, it's checking to see if the current S index position is a hyphen and steps over it if that is the case. So long as the k count is less than k, it adds characters and increments both the x and the k count. And then if the k count equals k, then it adds a hyphen and resets the k count to 0. And so that is my solution. It was not the most efficient as far as time complexity and had like 76% memory efficiency. Now the most upvoted problem definitely is more neat, concise. And what they're doing is they replaced the original string with a hyphenless string, meaning it just removed all the hyphens, kept everything else the same. It did the same thing now, except it didn't need to subtract, the amount of hyphens. So it found the remainder here, and that's the first grouping. And then their plan is to group things in a list and then use join at the end. And then using this character to separate. And so here they make the first chunk of the head by using slicing. So that would take whatever amount from the top of the string. And then here, something that I wish I had thought of that I will think of in the future is just using the k value to step through the string. So basically it's going to start at that index position of the string. It's going to increment to the end of the string, but it's going to step by k value, which is pretty smart on their part. And then it's going to append their groupings, and at each increment it's just going to keep stepping its way over until it gets to the end of the string. And then they join it all together, making sure that they're all uppercase. So that was be problem 482, an easy LeetCode problem. Again, this is Grover, Blue Collar Codes, quick and dirty. Thanks for joining.